Welcome to another episode of the Wood Couture podcast, recording live at the JW Marriott in Juhu, in the Bollywood capital, Mumbai. Today, we have the absolute pleasure to welcome one of the most awarded interior designers in the country, according to India Entrepreneur magazines, Shabnam Gupta. Welcome. Shabnam, as we all know, she is the principal founder of Peacock Life and, last but not least, the Orange Lane Studio. So, there's so much to talk about you. We're very curious to know everything about you. But first and foremost, why did you choose interior architecture?
Honestly, Filippo, I don't think I chose design. I was not an ambitious or a very clear child. I think design chose me. It was literally by chance that I got into home science and I hated it. And I came back home and I said, I'm not going to be doing this in the second week of college. And I was fortunate that I just about made it to design school by chance. So I always say design chose me, not the other way around.
Were you an artistic child or creative child?
Yes. I grew up in a family that was very artistic. My family actually comes from the film background. And we grew up with a lot of emphasis on arts and museums. And my dad insisted that we travel the whole world on a budget. So we had a lot of exposure, which I contribute to the artistic expression that I have today.
What is the best business advice he's given you, your father?
There is no replacement for perseverance. And every time you fall, you get up and you start again.
Wow, that's a very wise word.
Yeah, he is a very wise man.
Yeah. In your literature, in your narratives, in the various sites you have of all your businesses and also all the publications they've named you, but there is a sentence that stood in my mind, as soon as I read it, and they says, behind every successful woman stands a team who believe in her. Very amazing.
Yeah.
Normally they say behind the woman, there's a man. Or the opposite, actually, behind
They
the
always
success
say, yes,
is the
is a
opposite,
woman.
actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I love that, it's you truly believe in your team, right?
I believe that the nature of my job is such that you could be a single visionary, but you can't do anything without the team believing in that vision. Our job is about people. And I believe with the right team, you can do anything.
Right. It's fantastic to read this kind of, I call it poems, and not even sentences, because it's a poem. It's because you took a cliche they use for men, actually transform into a very powerful sentence in order to honor your team, which is brilliant. Along your journey, have you had or many mentors, and who stood up for you, in the early years of your career?
I have been very fortunate that I had parents who were my pillars in the initial years of my struggles. Then I had kids and I thought my career is over and I'm going to be left behind, and how am I going to manage everything? I had and I have still a husband who's always been the wind beneath my wings. He's always told me that you fly, we're all there. So I think for a lot of women, without this kind of support system, it's very difficult. And that's the reason we have a 80% women workforce at the studio. We have very strong, empowered women. And I genuinely believe that I was very fortunate to have this kind of support. That's the reason I never had to pause or stop.
In some of your literature, you mentioned Tushar Desai.
Yes, he was the first job I took. My first internship was with him. And that's when I realized how little I know. Because I was fresh out of college and I have done my interior design and I joined an architectural firm. And I realized I literally know nothing. And what you learn in college is very different from what you actually learn hands-on. So my real learning actually started there in this field.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. In 2003, you started your venture as an entrepreneur. And so the day you decided to become a businesswoman, have you had the fear that that may take you away from your creativity, from design? Because running a business is not the same as being a creative. So how did you manage to convince yourself it's not going to distract me from doing what I love?
Actually, in 2003, I founded my design studio. I never looked at it as a business because for me, a design studio, it's all here, right? That's your IP. So there was no investment. That portion of mine came into play in 2010 when I actually launched my retail label, Peacock Life. And which is when I realized that, oh, there is a tug of war between your creativity and between being an entrepreneur or a retailer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's because many people that embark there, particularly the creatives, there is either they're very good at being creative, very good at running businesses, but there is always a kind of unknown fear that, hey, I don't want to be moved away from my core, which is designing, creating, and
We've actually been on this crossroad where we said, do we want to continue being a smaller design studio that does work that's very detailed and we don't cut, copy, paste anything? Or do we want to become a really large scale commercial studio? And I think at that point, I was very clear that my heart lies in the love for what I do. And I do not want to dilute that. So till date, we are just a studio of around 30 people. We do work that does not repeat from any project to the other project. And I think that's why when clients come to us, every project is actually completely different. It's a reflection of the client's personality, with us just being the medium. So you see that, okay, it's the studio's work, but every project stands out.
although of course people know who you are, you design for celebrities, you design for very wealthy people, very notorious people. So they know who you are. But have they ever asked you what is your design style?
Yes, I think because my design style can become very eclectic, we've had clients who've been wary of working with us. Because I remember very clearly this very, very big business tycoon. And the first time I met him, his house was nowhere close to what my design language was. And he asked me very straight out that I will not be able to live in the color that you create. So will you be able to control yourself?
It's amazing.
So so that's what I mean, that, we adapt to, finally, it's the client's home. And I believe that design is such a powerful tool that it's not about how it looks, it's about how it makes you feel. And it's very important for me, for my clients to completely embrace their homes. So we adapt, we learn what a client is all about, and we still do what we do, but we veer a bit basis their personality type.
With people like him or her, whoever was this business tycoon, and for me it's a naive question, but there's no dumb questions. Do you ask him, what's your budget for doing this? Or I know it's not a question of money, but as a businesswoman, do you drop the question, what's your budget for doing all this? Because I never found a business person, big or small, that here's your blank check, do whatever you want.
Right.
So I don't know, with that kind of level of people, do you pop the question?
We give them an indication.
Okay.
But I am on the other spectrum, and I'm actually working towards trying to become better at that, where I've actually had a billionaire call me, his team get in touch with me. I don't Google clients. And I've realized it's quite horrible, because when I got on a call with him, I had no idea what his net worth was. I had no idea how big he was. And when I got off the call, my team said, "You don't know him?" Because I asked him, "What do you do?" And that was not nice. That was a very ill-informed question. But I came from a space where you've reached out to me, you love my work, you've done your homework. But then a lot of people say that you must also, so when it comes to budgets, you must know who you're talking to. Yeah. I don't come from that space, Filippo. I come from the space where you've come to me, I know how good I can make your space. This is what it's going to cost you.
First lesson was travel the world on a budget.
And then was not to ask them for their budgets. Tell them this is the budget.
Exactly. Diving deep in, again, what they've been writing about you and how you define yourself, because this was another one. I love reading about you because there is no one literature is the same.
Yeah.
In a sense, they're all unique, but everybody. But you wrote, or maybe your team, I don't know. A designer by profession, a thinker by habit, and an inventor by choice. Let's dissect all three of them. Why you define yourself with these three ways?
Because I think there is no design that can be pure design without thinking, without the thought process. The thought process is not only about aesthetic. It's about being able to decode who you're designing for, what your demographic is, what is it that they want, what is their personality type. There's a lot of psychology that goes into that, at least for our studio. I can literally look at somebody and say, okay, I think they're going to love this. And that's very important to be able to do that. And also innovation, because I love to experiment. I think it keeps us on our toes. I think it's very easy for a design studio to say, we did that, that looks great, let's do it again. I think I'll become complacent if I'll do that. And I'll lose the love of what I do. So that's the innovation part.
Yeah, it's, I was thinker, designer, and an inventor.
Yeah.
Three things that married together beautifully. And also, at the beginning of my introduction, talking about you, of course, Indian entrepreneur said, one of the most awarded interior designers that we have in the country. But for me, the best quote, and summarize probably what you said before, hey, you came to me because you like my work. And it was El Decor. They said, everything Shabnam Gupta touches become an exemplary standard. That's a very big compliment because it means what you do is different and whatever you do is particular. A standard means a benchmark, so it's quite high. How do you undertake each job to reach this kind of level of comments?
I don't take these titles too seriously. The media has been very kind to us. Maybe because the studio's work is very different from what you see all around us. I think I started my design studio at a time where the world was moving towards minimalism. And there were many times where I questioned my choices because I've always been a free child. Strong colors, mixed patterns, put pieces where they were not meant to be. And that kind of could either just completely throw me out and say, too much. But what it actually did is I was able to carve a very strong niche, which was my identity. And that's why our work till date is called bold and fearless. And also, as you evolve as a designer, as a person, I realized that my love for the cultural craft of India, which is so rich, the heritage, is what I wanted to showcase. But today people live very modern lives. They travel the world. So I try to give them their roots and context, but create homes for them that truly reflect their world-traveled personalities. And that creates this very intoxicated, different design language, which is why I think people are kind to us.
How, when you embark on a journey, like, for example, one of the houses that is you design and it's been widely spoken about because of uniqueness, particularly Architecture and Design magazine. He says, a creation, inexplicable creation, meaning Instagram blowing all over the place. It was the one for Kanika Dillon and Himanshu Sharma.
Yeah.
And they did a fantastic piece. Again, you may not like the press, but actually what they were describing, it was like fantastic, a poem, it was a house.
Yeah.
When you deal with people like that are the high degree of sophistications, of course, there might be popular people that everybody knows, but they're still human beings, How much time do you spend in getting to know them as human beings before designing their work? Unless they are your friends already, of course.
Yeah. No, most clients aren't friends to begin with. Most of the time, in the first 2 or 3 meetings, you've understood what their lifestyle is, what they want. And then once you've kind of taken that understanding, it's more to do with my internal reinterpretation of what I think they are, of what I think they want, of what I think I can up in their lifestyle, or something that they are not able to express, but I think that's where they fit in. And I've been very fortunate, Filippo, that I have gotten people, clients who've trusted me completely.
Right.
I think 90% of my clients just tell me, we love what you do, and they don't question a lot of my choices.
Some of your peers in design community, let's call it, everybody is obsessed with the design brief. My question to you is, are you bothered to get design brief, or is it more a discovery?
No. We definitely take the design brief. It's a different thing. We might not follow everything, because then you don't really need me, right? You need me to reinterpret your design brief.
Right.
You need me because I would hear you and decode you, but give you what I think is the best version of you for your home.
Right.
Otherwise, you just need ChatGPT.
Yeah, very true.
You know what I mean?
But you, on the other hand, I would say, it's interesting because you're creating fantastic spaces for personal spaces for people. You become almost a psychologist.
Yes.
To understand these people.
Absolutely. And I say that to my teams. I always tell my teams, you hear more than you speak. You just observe. You hear things which the clients are not saying. And I think that's where we pick up unsaid briefs.
Right.
And the moment you do that, you realize people read so well. And of course, you're not born with it. You've developed it. And sometimes you tell clients, I think this would be lovely. And they say, oh yeah, we never thought of that. We love it. So I think that kind of is something I also enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because being with this kind of people in general, but design in general is very much a listening.
Yes.
It's a game. Also, another thing I'm curious to know from you is the following. What are, and I don't want to call it mistake because it's misconceptions or requests that are not necessary. A lot of the clients do and say, but you don't need all this. Are there something that pop up all the time with all these kind of clients that when they brief you and say, well, you don't really need that, it's
I think a lot of the times I'm telling the clients, you don't need to do that. You don't need to spend that money. And then there are times where we tell the clients, you spend the money here. That's an asset you're creating.
Right.
So I think in my practice and as a person, I've been very real with my clients. And that's the reason we have so many private clients. They know I'll never talk about them. They know nobody will ever know anything, at least from me or my studio.
Clear.
And that builds this authenticity to the studio, to what we do. And clients know that they can be real with us. So when you actually scratch a bit more and you delve deeper than what you just see on the surface, especially with the celebrities and the stars, you start talking to the real person. And then that just creates this comfort level. And I think that's really been something that's been a very strong point with how I work with them.
Interesting. One area that you're very passionate is artwork and styling, right? And this is a very personal and subjective area. And how do you deal with that for each house you design? Meaning, sometimes do you have no disagreement or different opinions about what kind of art and style you go into the house with the clients? Or again, they take your advice because they trust you?
No, we like to engage because it is their home. It is their money. They're going to live there. They need to love it more than me. And I will never push a client. I never do that. Even if I believe very strongly, I'll press the point a bit, but I know when to step back and say, no problem, we'll come back to you. Fortunately for me, the mind never really stops working. And I travel so much for either clients or sourcing or for my retail store that I am exposed across the country with so many artisans, so many export houses, so many stockists, including internationally, that if I'm sourcing for some client, but I know I've loved two things for another client, I'll immediately just send it to them and say, you can't shop for a house in 2 trips. You can't go to one Paris flea market and one Milan and say, we're done. It's something that every piece that you keep in your house needs to have a memory, needs to make you smile. It can't just be an object. So I actually encourage my clients that every piece you need to look at, you need to have something that you think about, something that makes you feel, hey, we got this from Africa, we got this from this tribe. That's the beauty of a home. It needs to be holistic. It needs to emote.
Interesting. I went back and looked at your hospitality portfolio, which is very extensive, and I picked a couple of them, which were venue, bars, restaurants. I couldn't. One is Pompa and the other one is Drop. Small venues, bar. And then I look at that, and then I look at all the houses you do. You like colors, very the basic of the color palette,
Saturated
the blue,
colors,
the green, and very nice, very live energy. Yeah, I get from these colors. Is this Shabnam style, or is this quintessentially India design?
No. I would not contribute it to be ethnic or Indian. Though some of the colors are so deeply saturated that they can easily be mistaken to be ethnic. We delve in an entire array of different colors. But yes, we like bold colors. I would like to use a deep indigo blue, but then put a very modern white sofa against it. And then put a vintage textile for the cushions. And then throw in a Suzani rug. So it's this blending of different materiality that I think further accentuates the colors we like to use.
Right.
But that does not mean we work only in color. There are homes, like I said, where we've been very controlled and we understand the client brief and we make sure that the colors are very easy on the palette.
I've asked you this question about Indian design, not necessarily from an ethnicity point of view, but more from a style. Because yesterday, with one of your industry peers, and it was very interesting what he said at the end. He said, we have Italian design, we have European design, we have, Anglo-Saxon design. But his mission was to define what characterize Indian design, which is very interesting. I thought about it. I was like, wow, that's an interesting point. So, and I'm trying in my head to figure out what is Indian design.
Let me give you another aspect to it. It's a mandate in the studio that we try to follow. Every project, irrespective of whether it's modern India or whether it's clean lines or whether it's completely who we are, we need to incorporate at least 2 to 3 Indian crafts, reinterpret them to have a modern language to fit in. Because you see, that's why the crafts are dying, because they've not been reinterpreted over the years. And there is this revolution and this wave that is happening in India with the Indian architects and designers, and it is beautiful, where we are actually realizing from embroideries to, and every area has its own strength. And that is what Indian designers are now incorporating in their work, a lot of them.
Right.
And I am actually very proud to be part of this entire revitalization of artisans and their work. And that is when why we are also known as one of the front runners of modern Indian design.
It's very much, and you're right on that, absolutely. It's because I see, for me as an Italian, I see what is an Italian style. Very simple colors, the white, the black, the gray, the beige, very straight. Even in everything we do is simplicity is in there. Like our food is olive oil and and salt, nothing else. Then I come to India, that you go, it's difficult to generalize because you go 20, 30 states inside, and a culture every 100 meters. And but from the movies to the gastronomy, everything is very rich.
Yes.
Colors, and even the video clips of these big pop stars, they are full of colors, full of dancers. It's unbelievable, the richness of and that. And so that's why, when yesterday this gentleman was just introducing the idea of Indian design, wow, that's it's a good mission to understand what it's all about. Particularly for me, I'm not a designer, so I'm curious more than anything. Now, let me come to another aspect. And another thing that shocked me yesterday is that within the community, there are people that say, I don't really believe in Vastu. And there's some others, actually, they are very, spiritual about it and say, you know what, actually, a lot of my kind of people in the private residences, that is a key important factor. What's your views?
In my younger days, I've scoffed at Vastu. And I said, it can't change your life. And then as I grew, hopefully wiser, and gained more experience doing people's homes, I actually today believe that Vastu is a very definitive science. And it is not some humbug. It is based on the natural elements of the earth, like the sun. Why your kitchen should be in the southeast, because your sun rises from the east. So the sun rays are supposed to come into the kitchen and kill any germs that there are. And the magnetic pull of the earth as to why you need to sleep in the southwest and why your head should be facing south. So you realize as you scratch deeper that it is not it's not a fad. It's been there for a reason. It's probably lost its meaning over the years, but it's a very definitive science. It's a science that's based on energies. It's a science that makes you feel in a certain way. And we always ask a client if they'd like to follow through with Vastu. And I have seen unbelievable things with Vastu throughout my career. I've seen how Vastu impacts people's lives. And I believe that design should always, we are responsible for making people feel in a certain way in their homes. So if it can help somebody and if it can make you make your life better, I definitely don't see why we should not follow Vastu.
I'm going to ask you a question that is, I don't know whether it's fair or unfair, because, simply because I was a consultant one time in my life. And do you think, I know it's a generic question, but do you think, because that was my belief, and that if we have two hotels, one design, classic design, and one design according to Vastu principle, there is the potential, idea that the hotel design with Vastu principle may have a better financial performance.
100%.
Right.
100%, without a doubt.
Of course, you didn't hesitate.
I did, because that's what I meant. I have, and I wouldn't like to give examples because it it will directly contribute to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've seen it with film stars' homes that we've designed. And it is uncanny because you have actually had people who've not followed through. And we've, of course, told them that, fair enough. And then we've closed that chapter. And we've actually seen everything that the Vastu consultant said, piece by piece, come through. And then the people coming back and saying, okay, can we just rectify it?
In the personal life or in the public career?
Public career.
Wow. He improved his public career. Wow. That's amazing.
And I'm not talking about one instance or
No, of
two
course.
stray instances. It's just when you see a certain trend and a certain graph, it makes you realize that you don't necessarily know everything. And you don't necessarily need to know everything or just base it on a belief system. It's been there for more than thousands of years. There's definitely, some things scientifically that were not right today are the norm of the day. So I always see benefits my client, must do it.
Wow. Now, you're always very humble and you have a very high degree of humility, but you've done good. Trust me, you're very good. And let's talk ambition. I know it's not a question needing or not needing, but do you envisage before or later, without putting a business plan, that you might have a branch outside India, of either the Orange Studio or the Peacock Life?
100%. I did not earlier, but I know for a fact that, and I say this with all my humility, and I say this with keeping my fingers crossed. I do believe that my retail brand Peacock Life is a reflection of Indian art and craft. It's about the handmade pieces which are not available elsewhere. We are able to become the showcase of India to the world. And I hope that my brand can actually become that homegrown Indian brand at the global stage.
Wow. For the 2 days I know you, it's the first time that actually Shabnam said, you know what, I'm going for it. You're always very humble and very...
I mean, it's not something you really talk about.
No, of course.
But it's something you feel and you believe. And you believe that you can and you will.
Interesting. So, the day that you will be, let's say, distracted doing other things that you still love and you say, maybe your children, may carry on what you're doing, and you want to do something else. I never say hang the boots because I don't think you, even when you're 100, you will hang your boots or your pencil.
You know me well by now.
I got a flavor. I cannot say that I know you, but I got a flavor, let's call it. How would you like to be remembered?
As someone who went with her boots on. As someone who touched people's lives, as someone who made a small little impact for what India stood for.
Wow. Very patriotic, huh?
Not patriotic. I am patriotic, but it's not about, in design, it's not about only patriotism. It's about being able to use your voice, if God has been kind to you, to actually become that voice that can take these dying crafts and our culture. Look at our culture. It is beautiful. It's never gotten that platform. We've been ruled by the British for the longest time. They vandalized a lot of our pieces. Indians earlier were not so proud of their own culture because we were governed for so long by the Westerners that it took us a long time to come back to say, hey, we are fantastic at what we do. And we are proud of our roots. It's only now that Indian designers, even in fashion, even in home, in so many aspects, are now getting a platform internationally because they are sticking to their authenticity. And I think we've not even scratched the surface. There's so much more to put out there. Americans are great marketeers. It's not necessarily their product line is great or their design language is great or they really have a great deep-rooted culture. But Indians have that. And it's just now that they are saying, we are coming. Are you ready for us?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's interesting. I think you've probably been the most outspoken and truthful host, and guest we had in this podcast, because everybody interviewed, all our your industry peers, and I can consider our friends, and but all of you, and yesterday, 3 out of 4, let's call it, they were like that in basically saying that we need to have better documentation, we need to have a higher standard of design, to that. And I was thinking, hold on a second. But since I'm becoming to India, you've got, best hospitality. Even here, we are the
Yes.
JW. If you compare this JW with an American JW, this is easier, it's Carton.
Absolutely.
Then you go to the Oberoi of these days, or the Lila of these days, world-class hospitality. You design houses for billionaires and celebrities. There are people that have got nothing to envy to Hollywood or, Wall Street. So if we want to compare apples with apples. But still, I don't know why you guys are so humble and try to play the underdog, where you actually know underdog. The top CEOs of every company, from Google,
Is
Microsoft,
Indians.
they're all Indian.
Absolutely.
So why that you guys still have the kind of humility and always want to play the underdog, where you're actually number one in everything you do?
I think humility is a good thing to have. It keeps you grounded. But having said that, I think fashion is now getting the spotlight it deserves. Finance and tech India has always been the front runner because they're great minds. They're intelligent minds, just underrated. I think home decor, architecture and interior design, their time is just coming. And I think people are noticing that. The world is noticing that. Even Indian hotel chains who earlier preferred having architects from outside, we probably still have a little brushing up to do in terms of, like, you must have heard documentations and things like that. But we are working with a couple of international brands right now who've reached out to us. And I'm talking about the international brands who've reached out to us simply for our design. And yes, I see that, okay, that's not the kind of documentation I'm used to, but I'm catching up. It's just documentation. So I don't think that day is too far, Filippo. Yeah. It's just a question of saying, oh, that's how they work. This is how we work. You adapt.
Right. And it's interesting. I want to use exactly the last word, adaptation, because somebody else said yesterday, all the international brands, the Marriott of these days, the Hilton of these days, of course, they operate on a global scale, and one size don't fit all. And particularly when we're talking about India, there's a lot of adaptation to be done, because also within India, you got the resort, you got the downtown, and so forth. And talking about in general, the hospitality industry, in terms of interior design, do you think that some of these international brands are actually, aligning with what is required in the Indian context?
I think the Indian context works also very differently compared to what is very cookie standard cut. Otherwise, Southeast Asia in general is far, far miles away and ahead in terms of their hospitality industry. And I think maybe in India, because we've also got palace hotels, we've also got so much hospitality that is rooted with our heritage, that actually an Indian would be best to represent that.
Right.
So, I hope that answered your question.
No, it does. It does, because it was exactly that the point. I don't think cookie cutting actually works in India, because it's if you do something in Rajasthan, you do something in Mumbai.
There has to be context.
Two different contexts.
Absolutely,
completely different planets. And it's difficult to generalize Illuminism. And there's too much culture, and differentiations, which is what makes it apart,
Absolutely.
It's different.
Yeah.
And now, here's the, in your bucket of things, a project that you will love to do. Not a dream project, because you've done so many dream things, and a project say, I would love to do one of these kind of things.
I don't know. I really haven't thought that far. I never dreamt I'd be where I am today. My dad always taught me that if you don't dream, how are you going to do it? So first put your dreams out there. So I dream I can do anything. I know I will attract what's meant to come to me. And I'm sure this is just the beginning. I've just about started. I've just about, every time you get something that you've not done, it keeps you on your toes. And I just hope that life keeps me on my toes right till the end.
Right. In general, not necessarily talking about your clients, let's talk about in the industry out there. When we're talking about sustainability, everybody is aware of, everybody is trying to, but are actually people that are in need of interior design services, even for their homes, try to embrace this,
Yes. Sustainability is a slightly abused word. It's used too casually. But there are many keepers of culture. There are many front runners of people who are realizing that if we do not embrace it and if we do not make it a mandate as part of our designs, we are already going where we are going with global warming. And I think even the government is somewhere realizing that. Most of our high-end residentials, we are already doing solar plants, we're already doing rainwater harvesting, we're already doing, recycling of the water, we are doing plantations of native trees. So I think in general, people are becoming far more aware, and our job is to make them aware. So when we get a client who maybe might not be that passionate, but you tell them that, hey, you're going to have zero electricity bill after 4 years. Even if he's looking at just the finance aspect, he says, yeah, sure. So you need to educate them. You need to let them know that you need to plant so many trees. And I think you need to take that onus upon ourselves as people who are responsible for being custodians of the architecture and design industry.
Wow. For these young talents just graduated, imagine the young Shabnam, what advice would you give them to when they start working in the industry?
Don't get carried away by the glamour that you see. Don't get carried away by social media. It's not glamorous. There's cement and dirt and grime and a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. They end up seeing only one aspect. But actually, there's so much more that goes in our industry. And it's very important for the new generation to remain grounded and not get into this line for the wrong reasons. Get into it because you love it, because you want to be a part of the change.
Wow. Last but not least, is a cliche within our podcast, but I always curious to see what people says. If I take a very large white canvas on top of the Burj Khalifa so everybody can see it, what message would you write on it?
Laugh more often. Smile. Life is short. Life is beautiful.
And on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.